Tonight, charges laid. Jesse Freeman charged in connection to a drive-by shooting. Speaking out, the MLA for Peace River South addresses recent crime. And a national chain that got its start here in Dawson Creek is closing its doors. Good evening and thank you for joining us. And we begin tonight with the last suspect in a drive-by shooting in Dawson Creek has been charged. Jesse Freeman is facing one count of occupying a vehicle knowingly with a weapon present. Now, he was arrested last week in Hythe, Alberta on outstanding warrants. It's being alleged he shot at police while fleeing the scene of a drive-by shooting on 119th Avenue in Dawson Creek. Two other suspects were arrested near the scene. The CJDC-TV News has learned that in the past, Freeman has been found guilty of flight from police and breach of parole, among other charges. He's currently also facing charges of assault by choking, unlawful confinement or imprisonment, and theft over $5,000. He's also a relative of Joel Freeman, who was allegedly murdered last week in Dawson Creek. And the MLA for Peace River South is speaking out on the recent shootings in Dawson Creek. Larry Neufeld says he's concerned about what's taken place, but he adds the province has to help frontline police officers by keeping repeat offenders behind bars.
An end to the revolving door justice system. That's something that I'm going to be taking back to Victoria and really pushing forward hard. We really need to get back to a system of accountability. When it comes to a situation where we have first-line defenders, RCMP people being fired at, that is not acceptable. That is not acceptable.
Neufeld says he has full confidence in the RCMP and then the work that they've been doing. He says Dawson Creek is a beautiful community and he doesn't want to see people afraid to go outdoors. Northern Health announcing a toxic drug alert for the city of Dawson Creek. The health authority saying a bright pink pill is being sold as fentanyl. The drug has been linked to sudden overdoses requiring either naloxone or hospitalizations. Northern Health saying overdoses have occurred after inhaling the drug, smoking it. Health officials are urging users to be aware of the signs of an overdose and never consume the drug alone. The toxic drug alert will remain in place until February the 8th. Well, a well-known farm and ranch retailer first launched here in Dawson Creek is slated to close all of its locations nationwide. Peavey Mart, only officially announcing the closure of 22 of its stores in Ontario and Nova Scotia. However, sources tell retailer Insider their other 58 locations across Canada will also shutter due to financial difficulties. CJDC spoke to an employee of the Dawson Creek location who confirmed their store will be impacted. The employee saying communication with corporate on next steps remains ongoing. However, a store closing sign package has been sent out. The East Coast locations are set to close by April with liquidation sales underway. In a release, the retailer says the closures mark the initial phase of restructuring. CEO Doug Anderson citing a challenging Canadian retail landscape when thanking the impacted employees. Peavey Mart, which sells a wide range of hardware, outdoors, and agricultural supplies, is headquartered in Red Deer. The first location, originally named National Farmway, was opened in Dawson Creek in 1967. Well, a shift in monetary policy by the Bank of Canada last year has led to modest recovery in BC housing activity. That's according to a new report from the British Columbia Real Estate Association. After a year of flat pricings, the average listing in BC is projected to rise by 4.5% next year. 74,000 homes were sold in BC last year. That's slightly higher than the year prior, but it's below the historical average. New listings rebounded as lower mortgage rates enticed sellers who were hesitant to list last year because of rising interest rates. The Real Estate Association expects the central bank will continue cuts before stopping at around 2.5%. That'll set the stage for a stronger rebound in sales this year and next. And the Bank of Canada's next decision on interest rates is coming on Wednesday. It'll be the first time the central bank shares its projections for Canada's economy since Donald Trump returned as U.S. president. Now, Trump has threatened to hit Canada with 25% tariffs beginning February the 1st. And that threat is making it difficult for economists to predict just how Canada's central bank will respond. Now, many expect the bank to cut its benchmark rate by 25 basis points. That would bring the rate down to 3%. That would mark the 6th consecutive rate cut since June. A strike at CN Rail could begin as soon as tomorrow. The strike would affect some 750 employees in CN's Signal and Communications Department. CN says it's aware of the situation and it intends to implement a contingency plan that will maintain Canada's supply chain. The union representing the electrical workers claims to have a mandate from 95% of its members. The union is calling for higher wages and an improved work-life balance. The Alberta government released its final report on COVID-19, and it's calling into question most of the medically approved tools that were used to fight the pandemic. The 269-page document cites weak evidence for mask wearing and potential harm for doing so, and it also recommended against using rapid antigen testing to direct containment. The report recommends stopping the use of the COVID-19 vaccine unless more information is provided on risks, and the document also recommends protecting Albertans' rights to natural health products. The report also states disciplinary action should be stopped against healthcare workers who promoted medications for off-label, essentially drugs that have not been approved. The report was prepared by a panel of experts and commissioned by Danielle Smith's UCP government. A busy weekend on the campaign trail for the federal Liberal leadership. Hopefuls as the top contenders made their pitches to Quebecers.
Mr. Poilievre, he wants to control everything. He wants to insult half the country. He doesn't have respect for the deputies. He doesn't have respect for the people. And the Canadians will have a real option in the next election.
Mark Carney received an endorsement from Industry Minister François-Philippe Champagne. The former Bank of Canada governor now has the support of 16 ministers. Former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland has the support of 5 of her former cabinet colleagues. Freeland also made her own pitch in Quebec Sunday, appearing on a popular radio show. Former government House leader Karina Gould campaigned in the province Saturday before working the phone lines in Toronto on Sunday. And Ottawa area MP Chandra Arya says the party has told him he will not be allowed to run for the party leadership. So far, there's no official reason being given as to why. In less than a week, the United States is set to move ahead with the 25% tariffs on all Canadian imports. The measures being considered in retaliation include cutting off Canada's energy exports to the United States. Well, mayors from 5 provinces have now formed an alliance to deal with the potential fallout. The threat of tariffs comes on the heels of U.S. President Donald Trump's once again making false claims about a massive trade deficit with Canada.
Canada is totally reliant on us, therefore they should be a state. Canada will lose $250 billion a year in Canada. I could stop that in one day, and if I stopped that, Canada wouldn't exist.
The federal government has repeatedly said every option is on the table to counter the United States tariffs. And the Trump administration's crackdown on undocumented immigrant hit full speed this weekend. It led to more than 1,000 arrests, and it triggered protests across parts of the U.S.
I just feel so proud to see all of these flags, and we are good people. We are good people that want to work, and I just feel so proud to see everybody here.
Hundreds of protesters gathered on a bridge in Dallas Sunday. They were protesting against President Trump's executive orders and mass deportations. The crackdown has sparked concern in immigrant communities across the United States. Multiple federal agencies launched an immigration enforcement blitz on Sunday, leading to the arrest of nearly 1,000 people. Operations took place in Colorado, Los Angeles, Chicago, Austin, Texas, and in Puerto Rico. And CNN is reporting officials have been told to meet a quota of 75 arrests every day. And the United States is claiming victory in a dispute with Colombia over deported migrants. The White House says Colombia has agreed to accept flights carrying migrants deported by the U.S. without limitation or delay. President Trump had threatened to hit Colombia with a 25% tariff after its president barred 2 U.S. military deportation flights from landing in that country. The U.S. says it'll hold off on tariffs and other sanctions as long as Colombia lives up to its agreement. Well, there are fewer and fewer of them alive today, survivors of the Holocaust. 6 million Jews murdered, more than 1 million alone rounded up like cattle, starved, beaten, and gassed in Auschwitz. It was 80 years ago today the Allied troops liberated the notorious Nazi extermination camp in Poland and saw the horrors with their own eyes. And today's prime ministers, presidents, and kings all taking place in commemorative events along with some Canadian survivors. Colton Prale has more on the memorial.
8 decades later, some of the few survivors returned, laying candles at the base of a train car near the gates of the concentration camp.
We were helpless. We were abandoned. Nobody to complain to about our lot, and nobody or hardly anybody helped.
Today, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and world leaders joined survivors as they returned to the same grounds where an estimated 1.1 million people were killed, the overwhelming majority of them Jewish, including Miriam Ziegler's entire family.
I have the most horrible nightmares since October, and I was told I was coming here. I don't think I slept one night.
But Ziegler says their stories matter now more than ever, as high-profile anti-Semitic incidents spike in Canada and around the world.
If you don't do anything about it, it's going to repeat itself, which we are witnessing now, what happened with the hate and the spewing of it. Auschwitz didn't come down from the sky. It started with words, and it ends with the chimney being burned and going out in the smoke.
That message repeated by the Prime Minister, where global instability was a focus in a meeting between Trudeau and Polish President Andrzej Duda earlier in the day.
It's not just about the past, it's about the present and the future as well. The responsibility to remember and to say never again.
Today, the Prime Minister announced $3.4 million in new funding to combat anti-Semitism and preserve Holocaust remembrance, committing to the idea of never again.
In Gaza today, main roads leading into northern parts of the besieged territory are filled with tens of thousands of Palestinians. They're returning to their homes after being displaced several times over the last 15 months because of war. A massive column of people are making their way north, many on foot, along a road that runs along the shore of the Mediterranean Sea. Israel has given the green light for the return to northern Gaza and has begun withdrawing its forces from the area. The return to northern Gaza came after Hamas agreed to hand over 3 Israeli hostages later this week. Hamas has also agreed to provide a list of 33 hostages that are set to be released during the first 6-week phase of the ceasefire agreement. A former member of the Canadian Armed Forces has been freed after spending 2.5 months in captivity by the Taliban. To many, he's better known as Canadian Dave. The news has been greeted with relief by his friends and family.
It's been a difficult Christmas for everybody involved, different holiday break. So just absolutely relieved and overjoyed that there's a positive conclusion to all this.
Dave Lavery helped more than 100 people flee Afghanistan during the fall of Kabul. He was detained by the Taliban back on November the 11th, shortly after he landed in Afghanistan. His whereabouts were unknown for several weeks. Officials have now confirmed he has landed safely in Qatar. To Southern California now, where rain has been falling, bringing some relief for firefighters in the Los Angeles area. However, that rain is bringing with it its own risks. Flood watches have been issued for several areas as toxic ash from burnt areas washes down from scorched hillsides in the LA area. A portion of the Pacific Coast Highway that you can see there was closed on Sunday due to mud flows. The 3 major fires in LA area, the Palisades, Eaton, and Hughes fires, are 94, 98, and 95% contained as of today. Well, back here at home, the Fort St. John Women's Resource Society is looking to offer local trauma victims a brighter tomorrow. The Society is offering a free trauma workshop. Participants will take part in a guided discussion with clinicians experienced in dealing with trauma recovery and mental health. It's all made possible through a partnership with the North Peace Division of Family Practice and Northern Health. The workshop will be held at the Healing Place tomorrow between 1 and 4 p.m. and is open to all residents. However, it's specifically geared towards low-income, Indigenous, and individuals that are seeking support. Those interested can register by calling the number listed at the bottom of the screen or by visiting the Healing Place on 96th Avenue. All right, that is our look at what's been a busy day in news. Stay tuned, I'll be right back with weather. But as we head to break, here's a look at today's closing market numbers.